So for my sins, I was a pub manager in the service industry, serving up beer and burgers. I didn't know what I wanted to do. It was a push in the right direction that I needed.
Hello, my name's Nicole and welcome to The Big Chat. And we're very excited today to be talking to someone that I've known for quite a long time, and his name is Tom, and he's from SweatIt. Hello, Tom.
Hello, Nicole.
How are you today?
I'm good. I'm good with all these cameras and...
You're not nervous at all?
A bit clammy hand, possibly.
I think we're both feeling a little bit under pressure. I think it's Monday morning. We're literally first Monday after things have started to lift, really. There's a lot going on, isn't there?
Very exciting week last week. One step closer to normality with us. People in person, bit of human connection.
Tell people who are listening about SweatIt, because SweatIt, I know about SweatIt, but for those that don't know about SweatIt, from where you've started, as we'll talk more about where you're going throughout our conversation.
So right here, right now, we are a small group personal training facility. We have people ranging from all abilities, ages, coming to be coached. So every session is coach-led by one of our amazing team.
And you founded this. How long ago now, Tom?
5 years. So
Is
nearly
it 5 years?
Yep.
Wow. Okay,
So
I didn't know that.
I started out at the rugby club outside, SweatIt Training. It was very basic, had some kettlebells, bands, and I think it was 3 or 4 times a week. People would come and it was jump around, get hot and sweaty in the great outdoors. And
what started you doing that at the rugby club? Because before that, you weren't in the fitness industry before that, were you? You've always kept fit, but you weren't in the fitness industry working before that, were you?
No, so I had an interest, and I played rugby, and I wanted to keep fit, and I was in my 20s, and looking the part was about as far as it went.
Yeah.
But I worked for Wetherspoons, so for my sins, I was a pub manager in the service industry, serving up beer and burgers for 10 years.
Was it 10 years?
Nearly 10 years. So I did a little bit. I left a couple of times and went and did other things, but that was what I did before getting into this, and I was sort of thrusted into it. The plan was never to do it full time. It was always going to be a hobby. When I was on doing my course, I had a bit of a bad audit, and it wasn't bad enough to lose my job or anything like that, but it was bad enough to get sat down to sort of say, what are you going to do about it, Tom? And there and then I sort of went, I'm not going to do anything about it. I'm leaving.
Did you?
And I was given a couple of days to think about it. It was around Easter back in 2016 or something like that. I came back and just said, no, I'm off. And off I went. So I got a part-time job, and then I was thrown into doing my course and then making a career out of it ultimately.
So literally you had no sort of plan at the time. You were working in in a pub, like you say, burgers and beers, but keeping fit. And then that was the moment that you just thought, actually, I don't really want to be here anymore. I'm not that bothered.
So I enjoyed what I did to a degree. It was good fun, but I was nearing the end of my 20s and sort of realised that late nights on Fridays and Saturdays wasn't really conducive to where I wanted to go. And I didn't know what I wanted to do, but I've always enjoyed. I think I've always had a sort of a business brain to a degree, but never had my wings clipped enough to then go and do something. So it was the push in the right direction that I needed ultimately. Well,
and after being somewhere for 10 years and then doing that's quite bold as well when you've got nothing to go to. But sometimes I think that's when it happens, when you're sort of right at the edge. You're just like, oh, whatever, actually I'm going to go for this.
And I was lucky. I guess I've got a good support network. My mum and dad were I was living with them at the time, and they didn't really blink too much, and I was lucky to be able to sort of throw myself in with not a huge amount of consequence.
And you went and did, so you literally went to the rugby club I didn't think I knew this. Did I know this?
So yeah, that's how it started. The plan originally was that SweatIt was going to be a boot camp franchise. We were going to take on BMF, and I was going to take it to different locations. Crowborough started off really well, and it was because for exactly the reason that every week I'd have my mum, my dad, my uncle, my sister's boyfriend. I had a core of about 5 or 6, so that when people like yourself maybe turned up, you just slotted in. It all seemed very normal, like, oh, there's other people here that are having a great time. We tried to take it to Tunbridge Wells, and it was a massissive flop.
Was it? Where did you go in Tunbridge Wells? Whereabouts?
So we did it at the Foresters Football Club, because that was the only place that I could get at the time. And I didn't know anything about marketing. Just put a few signs up. No one really came. And we kind of pulled the plug on that quite reasonably quickly, but then went a little bit harder in on Crowborough. So we got through the summer, and then went and found inside schools. So used school halls. And then I think it was about 18 months until I sort of created this sort of persona that I was the circuit guy, and I didn't want to be known for that. I was still doing one-to-ones down at Assassins in Jarvis Brook. Amazing, loved it, but knew that we were kind of missing a trick with, I was offering this low cost, come and get hot and sweaty in a school hall, wherever it was. Then I was doing my one-to-ones. There was nothing really in the middle. So you've either got low cost or a reasonably premium product. But then I also, if you wanted to train me once, twice a week, I would then say, well, Nicole, what you can do outside of that. Home workouts weren't maybe as big a thing as they are in 2021 after the year that we've just been through. So people then have to go and get a gym membership. So that's where this whole hybrid model of coaching on every visit comes in, so that it doesn't matter. You've just got to book on and you turn up, and then we will look after you and support, direction, and motivation from not just us but other members that are just like you.
So when did you get your first premises? Because your premises that you're still currently got now, haven't you?
So 3.5 years ago, so September will be 4 years.
Goodness me.
And but I reckon it was only really 2 years ago that we started doing it properly, because I had no right to go and do what I was doing. Like you know, Sam, I'm very lucky that I've got a partner that's very ambitious, and at no point does she think a bad idea is a bad idea. So she kind of nudged me in the right direction to go and do something. But the money that we were earning at the time barely covered the rent. We managed to upsell to the core of the business, and that got us through. But it wasn't until Matt came on board as the sort of the first, he was the second official employee, but sort of the first one of the new regime, where we started doing it. We made a big change. We went to smaller groups. We started making it more of a service and product driven business, and that's when we started really helping people and making the most of every person's visit. So that was the sort of the catalyst for where we are today, really.
I mean, so when I first met you, that was probably about two years ago or 3 years ago, maybe. It was at the very beginning, because Tanya, obviously, who works at Chatty, is she's like hardcore, isn't she? She's a SweatIt member through and through, and some of her friends she's been with you from the very beginning. She was like, you've got to meet this guy, he's amazing, you'll get on really well with him. And I did come and train with you for a bit. I mean, I'm not the easiest person to train. I think Paul Dunton mentioned about teaching me golf on another podcast. That was quite difficult. So, but you were great. I mean, you were awesome, and I enjoyed it, but I think it's just sort of getting me there. That to get me to do it was hard. But as far as you go, what I saw in that environment was how much you really care about every single person that walks in through that door. And I would say that you did that from day one with everybody. So it's really interesting for me to hear you talking about how you feel like you know, I didn't have the right to do this, and this was going on behind. But to everyone that was coming in, Tom, they all had a great experience.
And that's that's sort of everything that sort of my values, that the more that we're doing a little bit on this at the moment, speak about it, is that everything I do, I want to provide something of a high quality. So when I was at Wetherspoons, it was just beer and burgers, but it used to annoy me that it's just Wetherspoons. Well, like if we only ever think like that, we are only ever going to be that.
Yeah.
And it was about bringing nice beers, craft beers, and sort of pulling the industry or the pub up. Yes, there was a core of people drinking Ruddles in the corner at 8 a.m, but that wasn't that you can't. They weren't a full reflection on the pub, and it's exactly the same now. Like our core member is someone that generally doesn't have a good experience in gyms or is looking for something more. So even someone that is slightly more experienced and seasoned, they still need and want some direction, and everyone needs to be coached. It doesn't matter, like an Olympian gets coached. So that's sort of our core offering, is that every time that you will turn up, you will be coached, but then we can show you some love as well.
Yeah, and you do. I think you are you're like a family, I would say. I think the experience that you've given, and even through lockdown, I've sort of, you very early on in lockdown, I think you brought something up to me, which was lovely. And I think you've done that with all of your members. You've really kept in touch with them all, and you've really cared about them, and you've offered a service, and you've changed and diversified what you've done all the way through it, despite the hardship that because people don't always know what's going on behind the scenes for us owners, founders, directors, whatever you want to call it. And on the face of it, it looks like everything's going great and it's all guns blazing, but it is tough, isn't it?
Yeah. Like I certainly have my moments, but ultimately I'm pretty positive. Nothing really gets me down. I suppose I'm sort of almost immune to certain bits and bobs now, and you do have to become detached from it to a degree. Yes, we are very personal and supportive, but that's at the front end. There's other parts of it that you do have to become detached. People are going to want to leave and are going to want to go off and explore other avenues. But as a whole, our job is to make it good enough and offer variety that people want to keep coming back for. And
you have really good results. Tanya looks great. She looks awesome. And I think, so you do have really good results with people, and you really do get them fit. And you also do care a lot about the whole ethos that goes around fitness. It's not just coming in and literally just lifting kettlebells. You really do care, don't you?
Well, our sort of objective is long-term healthy lifestyle. So we don't necessarily want people coming in and just wanting to achieve X in 12 weeks and then off you go. Our thing is to make it so you want to keep coming back. We can become part of your life, whether you've never done fitness or want to take it further, or you train 3 times a week now, but you want to train 4 times a week, and making sure that it should be a part of everyone's life. It's part of your lifestyle, and it's easy for me and all the other coaches to say that because it is kind of part of our life, but we've made it a part of our lives as well. So it's about getting people in, and it's enjoyment. And
making it fun. And you do make it fun. And it was tough for you because we were obviously doing some work together, and then you got on the front of a magazine, a local magazine. You were on the front of So magazine, which was great. You always said you wanted to be on a magazine. We got you on a magazine, Tom. You look fabulous. You know what I mean? It was so good, and you had all that. It was really nice to see that people were starting to see who were. And then of course, literally, lockdown happened, didn't it? Yeah, and that hit us, and I think that hit you quite.
Yeah, like anyone, we were affected because we are a in-person business. We always have been. We didn't necessarily have a huge online presence. We were very good at we've certainly improved, but we were all very good at the in-person stuff. So you coming for a session with us, if you went on holiday pre-COVID, we weren't necessarily that well set up. We just sort of say, well, have a good time, and pat you on the back, shake your hand, and off you go. One thing that sort of this has allowed us to do is develop things that we can support anyone anywhere in the world. And Zoom Zoom's been amazing. Is it what we want to continue doing? Not necessarily. Like, we are a bricks and mortar in-person business. We're not going to stray too far away from that. We don't want to be doing on-demand fitness necessarily. There are people that have got much bigger budgets and can make things look a lot glossier than we can. But we can still have touch points in person online, and that's what we've allowed us to do, really, for the last year. It's worked very well for us. And
I think what I love about you is, I mean, you and I have had many conversations, often on a bike. What is that bike? That thing that used to make me go on? That is the bike that is just a killer bike. I just never want to go on one of those bikes again. But you got me to go on it. But we used to have some quite good conversations about business while I was, treading away, and
while you're trying to distract.
Well, I was trying to distract from it. You wouldn't let me. But you read a lot of books. You're and I think that's really valuable for people to know thinking about starting up, because you sort of say, I don't deserve this, but I would argue that you do, because you do really do your research, and you mention about sort of other people have got bigger budgets, but I think your social media presence is great. I think the videos that you put out there are fabulous. I've always said that to you. I think the content that you put out is great quality, and you try lots of different things, you go on lots of different courses, you read lots of books. You and Sam, like you said, you're a power couple, you really support each other. But you do, and that's really valuable advice for people to sort of know. I mean, because are you still doing that? Do you still constantly... which was the book that you talked to me about? There was one in particular that you said was which was the Profit First one?
Yeah, so said? Profit First is a big one in terms of being able to manage your money.
Yeah.
That's certainly something that I didn't have when I was in my 20s. I was very much a... I had it, and I spent it very quickly. As all of us, I'd say. A lot of us did anyone. That. So that's one I'd massively recommend from a business standpoint. But it's also like it overlaps into personal finances. And I still do a lot of reading. I only say that we didn't deserve to move at the pace that we did when we did it, but then we went and got a smallish building and made that building work, and it's got us to this point, and there's bigger and better things coming, which is moving us very much forwards out of this what's gone on, what's come to this point.
Absolutely. So we went into lockdown, so everything, literally everything just stopped, didn't it? I remember we caught up at the beginning of it, and we were like, oh. And I remember you did a charity. There was a lot of people watched you do that charity gig that we did. Do you remember you did the one with the crazy jeans that you did? And there was a lot of people that watched you, and that was when you sort of started to do that one-to-one thing. And then you were doing all sorts of things with people. You were doing running, you were doing all sorts of different things. And then we thought we were coming out, didn't we? We got excited, and then it kind of got pulled away from us again. So talk to us about that experience for you. How was that sort of 6 months?
So initially I never thought Zoom was going to be a thing. I remember on the we shut a day early before we were told to, just because it felt a bit weird and it didn't feel particularly that nice, and we just wanted to give ourselves a bit of breathing time. And I think that's one thing that we've learned as a team, is that you can sort of buy yourself a bit of time. Like, you don't have to, and people coming out of lockdowns and stuff like that, you don't, just because you can doesn't mean you have to open, or you have to do this. Like, financially, yes, that might be a big player, but for some people you don't have to do things. So we bought ourselves a bit of time, and we had a team meeting on the Friday. We filmed some sort of on-demand stuff and had that scheduled to go out for the first 4 to 6 weeks or something like that. And at that point, I remember saying, like, Zoom's not going to be a thing. People don't want to be being trained on Zoom in their front rooms. They just want 15, 20-minute workouts that they can turn on whenever they want. It fits into their life. So that's what we did. That was on the Friday. We had another meeting on the Monday, and I was starting to sort of come around to the idea. And then by the Wednesday, we were live with Zoom. We slowly sort of did 2 or 3 a day. And then the last lockdown, we were doing 13 a day.
Goodness me.
So we just kept our normal timetable because that's what worked in November. We were flying in October, or we're getting back to where we sort of wanted to be in October. And then November came and we had another lockdown. So we didn't want to disrupt our members' movements. It wasn't quite so heavy, so people were going to work and people's lives were a little bit more normal. They just couldn't come to the gym. So we kept our timetable as normal. And then we did that the same through January because, again, we kind of didn't think it was going to be 3 to 4 months.
No.
But then as January went on, it sort of looked like it was going to be, and people were still stuck in the or within their routine. So we didn't want to break that. So we've kept that going. And then as we've gone outside a couple of weeks ago, and then we were inside last week. So yeah, we've gone through quite a few different transitions, but I suppose we've just tried to communicate every point. We've had touch points with all the members. We've given goodie bags out to everyone that you've seen at Christmas.
You're really good. You always mail people. You send out posts. There's all sorts of things that you do. You do really communicate well with your community, basically, which I think is really commendable that you do that.
And again, it's about having those. It's about having those touch points, isn't it? And it just comes back to making sure that we are very different to your normal gym. A normal gym, they want your money. They don't necessarily want you to turn up, where we do. Like we are, and this is one of the reasons why we're moving, is because we need more space. So we need more space to then be able to service more people. But even that space will only limit us to a certain number before we can't service those people properly. So the last thing that we want is people turning around and going, well, I used to love it, but now I can't get on. And that sort of time has come where we currently are, certainly under more COVID restrictions. And
actually, it was something you were thinking about moving. You've been thinking about that for a while, hadn't you? You were thinking about that before COVID, and you hadn't necessarily talked about it to everyone, but it was something that was on your mind. And it's interesting now that you've had, because you decided not to. You were thinking about it, but you were very sensible. I'm a bit more bullish. You were very, very sensible, I would say. But isn't that interesting how it's turned out? So what have you learned now? Because you are moving, you're going to tell us about that now. But what have you learned over the last year that's got you even better prepared for that? Has your plan pre-COVID, was it different, or has it just adapted, or has it grown?
It's been, so I suppose it's always been, we always knew that we were outgrow the space that we've got.
Yeah.
But because we've gone through a few different sort of models of how we operate, it took us until a couple of years ago to kind of get it right. At the start of COVID, it was ultimately a game to sort of see how many people we could fit into the space that we had. But it just doesn't work for us there now, and it's much nicer now that people aren't not climbing over each other, but it was pretty tight and it was a bit compact, especially at our busy times. So being able to sort of find a different space, and 4 times the size, we've got outside space, all our own car parking. It's going to be, and it's in a beautiful setting. You kind of drive in and it looks and feels completely different, and we are. Our current site is amazing. It's a cowshed basically. It's got OSB on the walls, and it's a bit hard, a bit more sort of harsh on the eyes. And our demographic is generally sort of 40 to 55 female. So, and it's not necessarily the nicest of locations as it stands, and that's sort of like we want to be able to. We're moving and have that more upmarket feel, like you are. It feels and looks much nicer, but it will still kind of have that. We're still kind of moving with those core products that has treated us so well to this point.
And you've got a great team, haven't you? Because your team's grown as well, hasn't it? How many of there are you now? Your main team. So
there's myself and then 4 others at the moment. So we just added Eleanor as front of house, and then we have got Matt, Abby, and Tyler as our coaches.
And I don't know if I've met Tyler. I've seen Tyler, but Matt and Abby I've met. And so, how did you meet those guys? How did you find? How did you connect with your team?
So myself and Matt have been friends since we were. Well, I think we were 7 when we met at the rugby club.
Yeah.
And we've been friends sort of, since way back then. and he was a golf pro before, so we were at golf college together. I decided that golf wasn't for me when I was about 18, and it took him about a decade to realise the same thing.
Golf college? Is there like golf college?
Golf college is a thing.
Is
so,
it?
Yeah, we got...
Do you turn up with your golfing bag and literally...
It was on a golf course.
That's interesting.
So we lived in... It sounds a lot more glamorous than it was, but it was... we were in caravans on the side of the driving range,
right.
And we'd get up early, hit some balls, go for some breakfast. We'd maybe place a few holes, and then sort of to make it a real thing, they were forced us to do a BTEC in sport. So yeah, we did that for 2 years. I worked in the industry for a little bit, but I didn't enjoy it to the degree that I should have. So yeah, Matt came aboard. So he was very much within the coaching industry, but moved over to fitness. So that's been amazing for him and for us, ultimately. Abby, I've known her for a long time. She's partner of Matt. He's a good friend. So yeah, that was sort of a good transition, and she was a member as well. And that's a big thing for us. Like she knew a lot about how we operated. The same with Matt. He was there. Well, they were both actually there at the same. Like when I first started outside, they were sort of a part of it then. So they've sort of grown with it. And yeah, we've kind of been able to then grow them as coaches within what we do really well. And then Tyler, good coach within the industry, sort of the first one that's come in from outside the ranks, I guess. And he came on board March last year. So he had 4 weeks. Oh no, so he was, 2 weeks of full time, and then was thrusted into us being locked down. And then he did really well and was amazing throughout lockdown, because it was myself and him that pretty much ran the show during that first lockdown. So yeah, kind of people didn't necessarily know a huge much about him initially, but he was thrusted into the limelight quite quick.
And you're just all really different characters, but you all work really well together. I think that's what's nice. And I think there's a coach for everyone in your team. Do you still enjoy coaching? Is that still a part of your job? I know you like coaching people, obviously. You love people, but do you still enjoy that side of it, or are you moving more away from that now that your team's growing?
So let's start off. Like last year, I had kind of got to the point where I could take a little bit of a step back. I love it. 5 days a week, no, because there's other things going on. So if I've got a distraction and I know I need to be doing something else, then that's the time when I don't enjoy it to the degree that, and that's not good for myself or the member ultimately. So I do love it. And I think it's a service industry. We are providing a service to people, but the beauty of what we do is that we're actually making a difference. So we're not just serving beer and making people smile. We're sort of making a difference to an all-round life as well.
And is that what you really love? I mean, what do you really love about what you're doing? Because you're really passionate about it. What is the thing that you love most about it? Or is it all the different aspects of running a business and getting you like figuring stuff out? You get quite business focused, don't you, which is great? Yeah,
I suppose I'm a bit of a problem solver. I quite like, and I ponder a lot of things. There's always an idea that I've got, and I'm always trying to work out the strategy and how I can do it. I'm not that technical, so I can kind of come up with an idea and then put it into motion is sometimes where I maybe fall short. But I'm lucky that I've got a couple of other people that are quite technically minded, so I can sort of push it in their direction.
Yeah.
But yeah, I guess I do enjoy the business side of things, and it's all about just providing a good service, and that's where I sort of get excited, I guess. And I want to be the best.
Yeah. And what are the new things that you're going to do with these bigger premises as well? Have you got plans of offering more to people coming and joining you? Yeah, so we kind of there's a few things that are yet to be finalised, but we're looking at sort of expanding our offering, certainly still within fitness, and providing more. Our core product will still be the gym and how we operate now, but sort of juicing it up a little bit and making it
better, really. But ultimately it'll stay pretty similar to how it is, but adding a few little bits and tweaks to it. Nicer environment, better kit, more space, big thing for us. We want to hone down and make it more sort of lifestyle driven. We were very good at the training bit before. We want to focus a little bit stronger on nutrition, and then sort of the more wellness side of things. Like we were never really about the transformation, and we always wanted it to be long term, but habits and health being sort of at the forefront of how we can make long term healthy lifestyles, like I said earlier.
Absolutely. And I mean, it's interesting because you do, I mean, you've always known a lot about nutrition, but you've also, like you say, with the wellness side of things, do you think now, because of what we've all experienced, it's almost made that well-being so much more in the limelight now, hasn't it? I mean, some of us already knew that we should look after our mental health and our physical health and eat healthy food. But now, really, because of what everyone's experienced with their anxiety, I mean, have you found, what have your members been like? Have their anxiety levels been high? Is that something you've been able to help with the services that you've been putting on? Because I think everyone's been anxious, haven't they? I've been anxious.
Yeah, massively. I would say that I was pretty stable. But I've certainly felt it over the last, however long it is. But I guess that was always important for us to continue. Like, it was never an option for us to stop what we were doing and close and say, I'll see you in a couple of months, because we are an anchor point for a lot of people. They can book on, they can turn up, and then they get their session. And there's always been that human connection, even through lockdowns via Zoom, where they can speak to a friendly face. So I think, yes, definitely people have had their ups and downs, and that's across the board. But we've been able to offer something and as a stabilizer for a lot of people, whether even sort of an anchor point, even when things aren't necessarily going all that well, definitely around them, that they can still get a couple, 2, 3, 4. Some people have trained even more. Like, we've got some shining lights throughout all of this that have gone from strength to strength, and they're training in their bedroom with a kettlebell. But it's made us better as well. Like, at this time last year, we sort of scratching our heads, like, how do we do body weight workouts and how do we train people with one piece of kit? Because we had the luxury that we had this gym with all this kit in it, and then we were thrusted into people digging out a dumbbell out of their shed. And it's made us better, much better for it. And
you're very flexible as well. I think, like, you've always, I don't know, sometimes you can get, it's personal, you get that personal feeling, and that's where that kind of family and that community comes in, which is certainly what I liked about working with you guys, because I just switch off. If someone starts telling me I have to do something, and if I don't do it then I just check out, and it's a lot of gyms, unfortunately, are a bit like that, aren't they? Because, like you say, they just take your membership money, and I can't speak for all gyms, but certainly some gyms I've experienced, it's been quite a cold experience, whereas I think with lockdown, you've been able to really offer that personal experience to all of your members, which must have been quite time consuming for you and the team as well.
But I guess it's kind of how we do it anyway. So we've reached out a little bit more heavily than we would normally do. It's not every day that we take bags of goodies round to people for some reason. Where
is the bag of goodies today?
But it's just offered, but again, it's highlighted that maybe we should do more of that. And why don't we do more of that? So that will certainly be something that continues for sure.
And you always you always have, like, your Christmas dues, and because that was weird as well, wasn't it? Because we couldn't do anything at Christmas. That was very bizarre. I mean, I just talked to my team on Zoom and sort of, it was just, we couldn't do anything like that, could we? So, but you've always had a big celebration, haven't you, with all your members normally?
So, and it's always been very successful. Not last year, but the year before, we had nearly 70 people for Christmas dinner. We generally take up a corner of a pub, Neville Crest and Gun generally. It's amazing. And we've spoke about doing sort of a bit more glam and black tie and hire out I don't know where we would do it, and take over a town.
Amazing.
But it's part of it. That's the bit that people remember. yeah, we would love people to turn around and say that their favourite moment of the whole year is the coaching and but it's a given, isn't it? It's expected. Like if we've got bad coaching, people aren't going to come. But the bit that they remember is the Christmas party and the summer games, and it's the slightly out of the ordinary stuff that's a little bit different. That kind of puts us on the map. And that's sort of what we're trying to do. Is we want to be different. We don't want to just be your normal gym. We are somewhere where you can be loved and we know your name. Like,
definitely.
You don't just get a grunt as you walk in, and that's a reflection on the industry. Not all normal gyms or gyms are like that. There are some better ones, and there are some good ones in this area. But we can still be better than them, basically, because we can offer that personal touch.
Absolutely. And what would you say is the sort of thing you've learned the most about yourself over the because you're a dad, aren't you? You've got a son. How old's your son now?
Nearly 4. So
he's like, you started this 5 years ago and your son's 4. So you've been quite busy as a young dad as well.
Yeah.
I mean, what have you learned about yourself in the last year?
I think I'm a little bit more, I think I'm probably a little bit more bullish. Again, like we wouldn't have moved prior to this, or it's sort of opened our eyes that we need to, but actually it's an important thing. We need to push on and take where we need to go, and I would be I think I'm kind of a little bit of a risk taker. I quite enjoy that, doing stuff that's maybe a little bit out of the ordinary. So I think that side of things, but like I said, I'm lucky that I've got a good team and I've got a partner that's again is pretty bonkers. She doesn't necessarily blink when I come up with a crazy idea. And I'm backed. Really.
That's important.
So I think that's a big thing. It's a big thing. If I kind of had resistance for certain aspects, and there is resistance, of course, for certain bits, but with Zachary coming along, like she knows and is sort of has got her own business and understands it. So it doesn't necessarily affect. We kind of keep going, we find ways, and we problem solve. So
it's good. I think it has made people more bullish in certain areas, you know, and I think there's more people starting up new businesses now because they've kind of thought, right, well, I'm just going to go for it. I'm going to do things. And I mean, what would be your advice to someone if they were thinking about not necessarily starting up something like you're doing, but any business? Because you were pretty young when you started it out. You had a young family. Yes, you've got support from Sam and you've got a good team, but you've created that team. That's your team is a reflection of you, just the same as your friends are a reflection of you and your partner's a reflection of you. So what would you say, advice that you could give to someone that might be thinking about leaving Wetherspoons after 10 years? Not just Wetherspoons, I'm going to get sued.
Well, there's always going to be an excuse, isn't there? So there shouldn't, like, I always see it, like we're expecting another baby in August, so and people would say like stuff's going to change. It's like, well, no, and that sounds really selfish for me to say, and it kind of is. Like I am quite a selfish person deep down. Well, I am, but I see things as like parallels. Work is work, and home life is home life.
Yeah,
and you're never going to have them in balance. Like I heard something the other day, and you never will have them in balance. But it's about allowing yourself and sort of keeping yourself in check and pulling certain aspects back. So when you are out of balance, it's kind of like I've had a good couple of weeks, and this week I'm sort of earmarked that I need to probably pull my weight a little bit more, which doesn't necessarily align because we're in the process of moving, but that's kind of what I've got to do. But yeah, like there's always going to be an excuse. There's just do something, start small, and like we've created our PT Academy in the last year, and again that wouldn't have been something that we would have done previously, maybe. But the last year has kind of made us step back and realise that what we do is very good, and that we can offer, we can improve the industry with putting other personal trainers and better personal trainers into the area to, even if they're not training with us, they can help people outside of our 4 walls and our membership base.
And what would you say as a coach would be the real qualities of a coach that you look for in your coaches? Because, you know, obviously, I mean, I'm coaching now and I'm talking to a lot of coaches today, actually. So what would you say would be the main qualities that you look for and you like in a coach?
Friendly, approachable, and nice. Like, we don't necessarily need someone to be able to coach a squat. That can be coached. So you got to be a good person.
Yeah.
Like, you can't, if you're technically perfect, but people don't like you, then you're no good to us, and you're probably no good to yourself.
You're not going to be a great coach, no.
Because you're not going to get buy-in. So we look for good people first, and then second, we got a pretty robust onboarding. It's not, if we needed a coach today, they wouldn't start tomorrow. We would look today and they would start in 4 months. We may speed that up ever so slightly, but kicking and screaming if we had to. And that's because it's good for us, it's good for our member, and it's good for the person coming on board. Because what we do is a little bit different.
It is different.
And we don't just want people to be thrusted into the limelight. Like Tyler started like in March, I say, but he'd been around with us since the start of December. So it was 3.5 months of him coming on board and then starting full time. So he sort of met half of the membership base, but maybe hadn't seen the morning crew because he hadn't done so many mornings and stuff like that. But it takes time to take a warm up and take a main strength aspect of the session, and so it's a slow process, and we can eke out the good qualities in people, and then make the most of them as well.
I can see big things for you guys. I think you deserve it. I think you've worked very hard. I know from the very first time I met you, you've always been very passionate and committed, and I think that's very exciting. You're having a second baby. I know Sam was keen. I know, so that's awesome. So congratulations, Sam, and you. That's really exciting. No. But I mean, that's you've got real things to look forward to at the moment, which is brilliant. And now that we're coming out of lockdown, I think that we are going to continue to come out of lockdown. People are going to stay well. How can people find out more about what you're doing, Tom? And, you know, obviously where you're going to be, how to be a part of all of this. How can they find out?
So we social media. We are just SweatIt Training on social media channels. Our website is sweatit.co. And then our PT Academy, if anyone is an aspiring personal trainer as well, is SweatIt PT Academy.
Amazing. So if people want to join member, they just literally check you out, get in touch with you, and they can just do that from today.
Yeah, ultimately. We start everyone out on 30 days, just because that's the best way for people to sort of dip their toe in and see if they like the way we do things. And then from there, we sort of decide there's plenty of different options in terms of membership from there. But everyone starts with 30 days because it's the easiest and best way to get people in and enjoying what we do.
So watch this space, really. I mean, did you ever think when you were, you know, I always like to ask this to guests, that when you were little, did you ever think this would be what you'd be doing?
No.
Like running a business with a team, you know, second baby on the way. I mean, it's really exciting. It's fantastic.
Yeah, I suppose I've managed to make a business out of a hobby, a passion. So that is, and it's amazing. And at no point does it feel like it's a chore or it's a job. I enjoy very much what I do. I probably work too hard, but that doesn't necessarily get me good results. Like, hard work will only get you so far. There's many other aspects that go into it. We're onwards and upwards for sure.
I think it's important to do what you love, really, isn't it? I think if you do what you love, then you can't go wrong. You know, if, like you say, it doesn't feel like a chore then, does it? It's when you don't have that Sunday feeling, even though it's Monday today and we are a bit like Monday, when you're doing something that you love, then it doesn't feel like a chore. And then that's where I think that magic really happens and things grow. So I wish you all the luck. And would you come back and talk to us again when you're like, maybe with your team, when you've flourished even more and taken over Tunbridge Wells?
Absolutely.
Good. All right. Well, thank you for joining us today.
Thank you.
Thank you.